questions from that last meditation we did? Any questions or comments?
There was a certain kind of dealing that I usually have in meditation that is absent.
Dealing or feeling?
Dealing, like coping. I usually need to cope with my own movement towards the thought.
Oh, right, okay.
And in this specific practice, I go kind of blank in a good way.
Blank, meaning you don't have to cope with appearances? You don't have to deal with them?
But then I feel maybe it's less productive for my daily life.
So we're not saying in this practice, and I mentioned this I think earlier, that Shamatha practice in general, but particularly this sort of practice, people could use it to withdraw from all of this mess out there. That's possible, and sometimes people do that, but that's not healthy. And so of course we're not doing that with this practice. Remember, this practice is part of the framework, including compassion and Vipashyana, where we are more able to engage in a better way with the world. So if we have that framework, then we won't sort of use this to withdraw. And what you're saying, I think, is that by doing this practice, it's not a matter of not dealing with things, but I think what the experience is that those things can be there without them overwhelming us. Which means that's good, because then whatever comes to us in our daily life, we can be fully present, and then we can decide. If we need to respond, we respond to that. We ignore that. Because they're there, but they're not overwhelming us. So we're actually now in a very good state to be able to deal with the difficult issues in our life. So this practice is about enabling us, and that's one of the big side benefits I mentioned before, is this practice enables us to be in a state in daily life where then we can effectively deal with everything using the other elements, the Vipashyana, compassion, and so forth. Is that sort of what you're asking?
I'm a bit confused because it's really two extremes. Also last year, I really liked this practice.
Right.
Because it's so pleasant.
Correct. And so again, it's not really two extremes. What we're doing here is we are emphasizing this open, spacious mind, emphasizing that aspect. And that will then enable us in daily life to be in that state and to be able to more effectively deal with everything in our life, rather than like this, and then some little thing comes and we react. So what we're going to do tomorrow is exactly that. We're going to combine this with yesterday's practice. And so tomorrow's practice will be then one step towards being able to deal with everything. But to try and deal with everything with this type of mind, it's not going to work. We're just going to react. So first, we need to establish a foundation to be able to deal with everything, and this today is part of that foundation. So this is only one step in the overall process. Whereas if we just take this in isolation, then we go, oh, this is very nice, I don't have to deal with anything, I'm just going to sit in this little space for the rest of my life. So that, of course, is unhealthy. And of course, that's not what we're doing here today. This is part of a bigger picture, and we need to keep that bigger picture in mind, otherwise we'll sort of detour off somewhere.
So in the previous practices we used sati, and we remember the object. And I was wondering about this practice. What do I remember? How do I have the indication of me knowing that I'm there?
So sati or mindfulness, of course we're using mindfulness in this practice as well, but actually it's a bit interesting here because in the breath practice or the mind practice, we have, let's use the breath as an example, we have awareness focusing on the sensations of the breath, and then we have introspection monitoring that. But now mindfulness is self-reflexive, so it means that actually introspection is automatically there because we're not focusing on another object, we're knowing we're aware, which means that just simply that means automatically quality control is there because we're focusing on the mind itself as the object. Does that make sense?
It's not really resting, because the word resting in awareness, there is no act here. It's
Correct.
resting. And when you apply the quality control, there is some action there.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the quality control is inbuilt in resting because you're being self-aware. So actually the quality control is automatically there. You don't have, it's not a separate thing.
That's why.
As the case is with the other practices when you're focusing on another object. So it's automatically there. Because if you're resting in awareness and you're becoming dull, that you see that because that's what you're focusing on, the awareness itself. If awareness is becoming dull, you see the dullness. You don't have to apply some quality control there. It's already automatically there.
Is that why it is relaxing? Because the quality control is already there? So I don't have to...
No, I think it's one of the reasons this is, or there's a number of reasons it's relaxing. One is that we're not focusing on appearances, because whenever we focus on appearances, we're grasping and pushing, and so that's what's, for us, in our current state, is stressful and takes a lot of effort because we're grabbing the pleasant one, pushing away the unpleasant, and we're not having to do that in this practice. So this is why, I think, one of the reasons why it's so relaxing, this practice.
I'm thinking, I know this is more like a Vipashyana in a way, but when we were dealing with anger, and I thought with this meditation, it's sort of like it was 3 stages for me. Because when I was looking at the mind, right, so it's like a rush of things, because the mind goes all over the place, right? Very long way to go. And then I remember, I thought when you were doing the awareness, so it's a step backwards, and then you see things in a bigger way, right? And there is like, and it's like quietness. And I thought about when we are angry, you know, so the mind goes, I mean, when I'm angry, my mind goes all over the place, and it starts, you know, to do all these things like a train, like, you know, a rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember that because of this meditation of like observing from the bigger, you know, space, then I can apply it sometimes and I'm not very angry. And then it's like, oh, you know, things are, it's okay, you know? It's like from the narrow perspective of mind that I have when I'm angry, I can go a step back and see the bigger picture. And automatically that puts me into ease.
Exactly.
So I don't talk about combining the two things, but I think that in this way I thought that's very helpful to dealing with those things.
Exactly the point, and that's, as from here as well, is that this is one of the main side benefits of this practice, is to have that open, spacious mind and bring that into daily life, rather than our mind being like this and some little stimulus comes, we react. We're like this, you know, like the pebble in the lake, and then we can be like that and not react, and then just respond in a better way. And so that's what we're going to bring this, what we're cultivating today, in tomorrow's practice, where we start to observe things like anger and frustration and see, is there a difference now with that basis? So that's what we're going to move to tomorrow.
I felt like I was moving between being and noting.
And noting, yeah.
And while I was being, I was thinking, okay, I'm breathing, but I'm not noting the breath, like to try to, but then I was thinking that I wanted to differentiate.
Differentiate.
Yeah. For me, like that I'm not doing Shamatha on the breath, and then I'm breathing, but I'm not focusing on the breath, but I was thinking as well, but if I'm aware of that kind of...
But again, even in this practice, a little bit of commentary to start the practice is helpful, to remind us of what to do and what not to do. So don't worry too much about if there's a little bit of commentary, where if the breath is coming, you're focusing on it, and you go, release the breath, release. A little bit of that sort of commentary is okay, because otherwise we just get caught up. But what you'll find is that then we get in the habit, and we won't need to add any commentary, because we'll just rest, and we will just let everything be there. So yeah, again, a little bit of commentary, don't worry too much about it, because often people get frustrated and go, oh no, I shouldn't be doing that, shouldn't be doing that. But of course then they're adding more. So again, a little bit of commentary to remind us of what we're doing in this practice initially is, until we learn it well, is okay. And then once it becomes more automatic, then we won't need that. We'll just rest. So it's okay.
During the meditation, you said that if we get caught up by a thought or an emotion or anything, release awareness into space. And I tried to understand what is this instruction, what does it mean?
It's a sort of manner of speaking. I mean, of course, we can't technically release awareness into space, but what that sort of instruction is about is to stop this tightness. So if you, because that's often what happens, is our mind becomes tight. And so if you hear the instruction, release awareness into space, hopefully that will help us to do this. Just release the tightness. So yes, it's a sort of a way of speaking, really. We're not sort of, I mean, if it helps, you could imagine that your awareness is going off into the distance. Initially that's okay, because it really does then. If we even do a bit of visualization that our mind is going way out, that's okay initially, because that helps to release it. But again, eventually then you'll just be in that natural way of just being in the open. So that's fine. In fact, I want to add one more thing to that, and then we'll go back to the practice. And that is, like every practice, the two main imbalances is agitation, tension, distraction, and drowsiness, dullness. So the instruction I gave in that last meditation, if we're getting agitated, tense, or distracted, again, to release awareness, to release that tightness, letting go of all appearances, releasing all appearances, and then just really relaxing completely. But we can add one more thing to that, and that is the gaze. You might find it also helpful, particularly if you're getting agitated or tense, lower the gaze. Bring the gaze down more. And similarly, if we're becoming dull or drowsy, I think the instruction I gave in the last meditation was like, sharpen the focus, pay closer attention, knowing you're aware. In addition to that, you might like to experiment with also elevating the gaze. You might be surprised at how just if your gaze is like that, if you just move it like that, just that little bit up, you might find that actually just that physical movement sharpens the mind. So therefore, in this practice, again, experiment a little bit with that. If we're getting agitated, tense, distracted, lower. If we're getting dull, elevate. Even to the point where you may be looking straight ahead. So that's something we can play with depending on whether we're getting agitated or we're getting dull. So that's the thing we'll add to this practice. And again, last point is, again, the basis of relaxation. Relax, 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 relax. The harder you try in this practice, the more difficult it will become. So just release all that pushing, striving mind and just rest. And just know we're resting. That's it. Any last questions? Otherwise we'll go back to the practice. Yeah.
I just want to know if I'm in the right direction. When you say aware in the awareness, you mean just know.
When I say what, sorry?
Aware in the awareness.
Right.
You mean just know that I'm present?
Know that you're aware, that's it. Yeah. I mean, sometimes this practice is called awareness of awareness. And I used to use that way of speaking, but I find that if I say be aware of being aware, people go, where is this awareness that I'm aware of? It really puts people into a very dualistic mode and in a doing mode. Whereas instead of that, instead of saying that be aware of being aware, just say rest in awareness, it's the way of speaking is much more non-dualistic, so I find that more helpful for people. Okay, let's do the practice again. As always, we begin by preparing the body, establishing a good, comfortable posture. Allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. And setting the mind in a state of ease and relaxation. Simply allowing it to come to rest in the present moment. Simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. Now, whilst maintaining that relaxed body and mind, allow your eyes to be at least partially open, resting your gaze in the space in front of you, and simply releasing all appearances, allowing the mind to come to rest. Simply resting in awareness itself, knowing that you're aware. Caught up in any agitation, tension or distraction, lower the gaze, release awareness into space, releasing all appearances and relaxing completely. And simply resting in that open, spacious stillness of awareness. finding that you're simply falling into dullness or drowsiness, elevate the gaze and sharpen the focus, knowing that you're aware. Resting in that open, spacious stillness of awareness.